Hey everyone, I just want to pop on here and basically just start talking about a few things. And what I want to talk about is our culture with regards to finances. And in particular, I want to be talking about budgeting, retirement, and savings. And before I get into it, I just want my followers to know that I'm not coming to you on some high horse. I'm definitely not perfect. I've made tons of mistakes with regards to my finances. I know what it's like to have no money. I was almost 30 years old, still living at my parents' place. I didn't even date for about 2.5 years because I was too busy just trying to pay for the office rent and trying to keep gas in my car. I just want to kind of be talking about some of those mistakes that I've made, and hopefully just a couple people just kind of change their mind with regards to their finances. I'm also seeing a lot of these influencers or a lot of these gurus talking about what wealth looks like, what being rich looks like, and it's just horrible advice. So I want to come to you with someone who understands, who knows people that do have a large amount of money and how they live their life, because it's most likely the complete opposite of what we are seeing on social media. I do want to get into some statistics as well. If you're making $75,000 a year, do you know how much you need to have saved in order to just retire on the same standard of living? And this ain't factoring any really nice vacations or anything like that, just the same standard of living. According to the data, you're going to need about $2.5 million after taxes. How do we know that? Well, if you have $2.5 million and you're getting a 4% on that money, it's going to spit out about $75,000 a year, and you can retire on the same standard of living. Some people might say, well, I have a pension or I have an RSP, right? You haven't paid your taxes on that yet. You still need to pay your taxes. So you need about $2.5 million a year just to have after taxes to have the same standard of living. And if you keep looking at the statistics, Canadians, they have about $73,000 just in debt. And this is not factoring the mortgage. That study came out by Equifax in 2020. That was before the pandemic. The average Canadian has about $4,600 just in credit card debt, and that is getting an interest rate of 25%. And that study came out in the last quarter of 2024 by TransUnion. From what I see right now, we're in a very consumer-based culture. It's all about spend. We are trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? We are trying to impress people that are most likely talking behind our backs anyways. And yeah, I just see these people on social media giving this horrible advice. Like I saw one the other day, and this person's just saying like, you got to get rid of all your money. You have to get rid of all your cash because it's going to keep you motivated. It's like, really? It's going to keep you stressed. Right? It's going to keep you really stressed. And if your motivation is so low that you need to invest all your cash, right? I don't think you need to work on your motivation. You probably need a bit of a reality check. And we're also buying these nice watches and these nice cars and the nice clothes. And it's like, don't you want to hang out with people that are hanging out with you because, you have good character, you have good morals, you have good values? Like, do you really want to be hanging out with someone because they just respect the car you drive or that watch that you're wearing? And at the same time too is like, you know who you are. I know a lot of people that I do hang out with that live that kind of lifestyle. That's totally fine. But me, I'm on a different journey. And some of the young people out there, you might be saying, well, retirement's like 30, 40 years away. I don't have to worry about it. It's gonna come sooner than you think. You're gonna blink and it's already going to be there. And at the same time, it's like, do you wanna have control of your life? Do you wanna be able to call the shots? Do you wanna be able to just be able to cut a check and not have to worry about it because your family member is in some sort of health emergency and our healthcare system is complete junk here in Canada, so you can just go to the States and get it done the next day and cut a check, right? Do you want to be in control? Do you want to be able to take advantage of certain opportunities? So we should be saving, doesn't matter how old you are, you should be saving money, right? And then we can start buying things that are an appreciating asset instead of a liability. As far as a car goes, especially if you're very young, you should be leasing it or you should be buying used. Let someone else pay all that depreciation. A vehicle will lose about 70% of its value in the first 5 years, right? We aren't gonna do that. We're gonna let someone else pay all that depreciation. If you think about it too, is like, you're gonna do this huge reno on your house, it's gonna be outdated in about 10 or 12 years anyways. So I started getting very addicted to getting my savings to grow, having a very strong nest egg, right? Can you go 3 to 6 months and not having to work? Could you survive off of 6 months? Do you have 6 months saved? Okay, awesome. Can you go 6 years? Okay, can you go 60 years, right? So there's savings, and then there's also investing, and those are two totally different things. For my clients that are in the decumulation phase of their retirement, we do talk about having at least 1 to 2 years of cash flow just sitting aside in their savings account, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's gonna lower your stress, knowing that you can survive for those 1 or 2 years. Look what happened to the tariffs. But some of my clients in the decumulation phase, we could have paused those packs as they're coming into their account because they had that savings. So now you're not compounding during a bear market because they had savings, right? You want to be able to buy something and be able to get even a better deal because you have cash, right? We can take advantage of these certain opportunities. Now, this advice can apply to anybody. It could apply to someone making minimum wage all the way to 100 grand a year, 6, 7 figures. The reality is that you need an outcome. You need a financial goal. Where are you going? And I've mentioned this in plenty of other videos, but I see someone that makes 40 grand a year, and then they make 80 grand a year, and they just upgrade their lifestyle. They go from a Ford Focus to a pretty nice car, and they go from some apartment that's okay to like a really, really nice apartment. And then they go from 80 grand to like 150 grand, and they get rid of this car to buy a Lexus, and they go from a really nice apartment to maybe buying a house that's a bit overboard, and they just keep depleting their savings. And as their income grows and grows all the way to 250 grand a year, even doctors that I know that are making 300 plus, they're in the same position that they're in when they were making minimum wage because they never changed their habits. When I first started working, I remember my first job, I was bagging groceries at Safeway, making like $7 an hour. I got in the habit of saving money, right? I remember saving my first $500. I was pumped. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna save 1,000. And then I saved 3,000. And then I saved 6,000. And then I grew up and I'm in my young 20s and I blew it on stupid stuff. But I got myself back in that habit. Okay, save 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, right? Okay, I can go at least 6 months not working and everything is good. Can you do that for a year? And then you see your friends and they buy that really, really nice car and they deplete their savings, right? They buy a house that's completely overboard and they deplete their savings, and now they're housebroke and they can't go on vacation. My car's been paid off for years. My friend group always asks me, you know, you're doing pretty well. Why don't you just buy a new car? I was like, I'm too busy stacking cash away. I'm working towards financial independence. Our culture's not like that. Now, some people out there, they want to be very, very wealthy. As they say, we want to have FU money. I don't really think that's what majority of the population wants. They just want to make sure that they're financially independent. They just want to make sure that, you know, house is paid off, debt free, you have some money set aside. And I think that majority of people would like to be financially independent so that they can buy back time. They can spend more time with their family. I know that some people might say, well, money's on everything. And hey, I get that. I completely understand that. I also knew that the lack of money, that's a really big concern as well. I don't think we want to be stressed. I don't think we want to be broke. And I do think that if you have the opportunity to help your family, that you would like to be able to cut a check and just not have to worry about it. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to find out our financial independence number. That's called your FIN. We need to know how much money do you need to have saved in order to live off that for the rest of your life. And that's the goal. That's what we need to get to, whether it's 55 or 60, 65, 70, that's our target. So that 2.5 million that I was talking about, that would be someone's financial independence number. And how are we going to get there? Step 1. Monitor your cash flow. Watch the dining out. Coffees every single day. Pack a lunch. Maybe even subscriptions that you might not be using anymore. Audit your finances. Shut down your Amazon account. I know people were saying that we were going through like a recession. It's like, well, I don't know. You go to a mall, it's pretty packed. You go to an airport, it's pretty packed. So I do feel like people, which is step 2, is people are too comfortable going into debt. Stop trying to impress people that just don't care. Just keeping up with the Joneses. And then ultimately, Step 3 is we need to build an emergency fund. You need to have those 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up, because it's when life happens. It's maybe a job loss, maybe you got laid off, your car needs maintenance, your roof leaks, your furnace goes. You want to be able to just pay for these and not have to go back into debt, throw it on the credit card, paying 20 to 25% interest. I think one thing that I need to mention that we can all get a bit careless is little things. I'll give a client a monthly tracker and they can go back 30 days on their online banking. Just track everything you spent your money on. Dining out in coffees is usually $400 to $600 a month, easy, right? So I bring my own coffee to work, pack my own lunch. My fiance and I, we agree on what our budget is going to be per month on dining out. But most people right now are just winging it, and people have no idea where their money is going. And one thing I want to mention too is, if you're married, the finances should definitely be together. Like, are you a team or not? Hopefully there's a saver and there's a spender. And I'm hoping that the saver has influence on the spender. But if you have two spenders together, that is a recipe for complete disaster. So if anyone does mention that you do not need an emergency fund, you don't need savings, I'm sorry to break it to you, but they are just wrong. You need savings, and then we move on to the next component, which there is investing. And this is a portion of the money where there's going to be some risk involved, and we're going to be getting something called a rate of return on this money, and we can get this money working for us. And I'm not going to get into the debate on whether you should hire a financial advisor or not. It's not a video for that. But what I will say is that if an advisor cannot explain it to you in a way that is very simple to understand, they're not the advisor for you. Some advisors like to make things very, very technical, complex to make you feel like you need them. And that's simply just not the case. So if you can't explain it to me in a way that I can understand, you probably shouldn't be putting your money in there. And that goes for anything. People say you should put your money in crypto, you should put your money in real estate, you should put your money this and that. And if you can't explain it to me in a way that I can understand, you can't tell me your strategy behind it, probably shouldn't be putting your money in there. The next component is that if you're an individual that's making a lot of money, you need to hire a very strong tax person. You need to hire a very competent CPA, and you can work with financial professionals to make sure that your finances are on track. And then if you want that $80,000 car or $150,000 car, right? Or you really badly want that $50,000 Rolex or whatever it is. But majority of the extremely wealthy people that I know, they had delayed gratification for a very long time. I know certain businesses where, they were making 20, 30K a month and they were living off 5 and they're stacking the rest away in cash for savings. You can look at the car that you drive and let's say the payment is $1,200 a month. What if you were to find a vehicle that was more affordable, and instead of having a $1,200 a month payment, it could be $500 a month? Where would that $700 a month, where could it really go to? How quick would it be able to build that emergency fund? What could you do with an extra $700 a month compounded in the market for your retirement? I swear, no one really cares what car you drive. Nobody really cares. And for those of you out there that are making a lot of money and you do have the blessing of making tremendous amounts, don't make it last just a little bit. You had a very small window of time. Make sure that you're saving it and make sure that you are investing it and that you're not going into debt. So don't make it last just a little bit. If you're making more than you ever thought that you would make sure that you're setting it, especially if you're an entrepreneur. That's the number one mistake I see entrepreneurs make, is they don't set aside money for your taxes. It's like, oh, I made 30K this month. No, you didn't. You didn't make 30K this month. So make sure you have savings and make sure you invest it. Please don't make it last only a little bit, right? You had this tremendous opportunity, you had so much talent, and you're making so much money. Don't make it last just a little bit. And I think that we all know this. Debt on liabilities is not good. Debt on credit cards, vacations, food, clothing it's really dumb. At the same time, debt on an appreciating asset might not be good either. People think that, well, I can just buy it because it's debt on an appreciating asset. Not necessarily, okay? You make your money on the buy, okay? So you still gotta buy at the right price. And I do know people that they were doing very well, but they didn't prep themselves financially. And then when the pressure came in, and maybe during some economical bad times, since they didn't prep, it led to a lot of stress. And that stress led to them potentially selling an asset at a price that was obviously a great buy for the investor, but they had to set at that price because they were under financial hardship. Now, I know people that did not prepare themselves financially for the bad times, and then when the bad times rolled around, that created a lot of unnecessary stress. And then what happens is, since you didn't prep yourself financially because you didn't have savings, you end up selling an asset at a price that you didn't want to, and then it was actually bought by an investor that did have cash set aside and was able to buy another asset at a very good price because you didn't set yourself up financially. As an example, during COVID, when those interest rates were 1.8, 1.7, and people are paying $50,000 to $100,000 over their house for a 5-year fixed, and then those 5-year fixed are maturing and they went from 1.8 all the way up to 5-6%, people weren't able to afford that new mortgage payment because they didn't have savings. They didn't have savings set aside. So to recap, when it comes to budgeting, make sure you pay yourself first. Do a budget, do an audit of your finances. Again, like, do you really need to be spending $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month on a car or a truck payment? What happens if we can just find ways of saving $500 a month or $250 a month and allocating that to our savings? Number two is that we want to be getting out of debt, right? There's plenty of things online, like you can go through a debt calculator, like a snowball effect, and you can start paying off these debts and then using that payment to snowball onto the next one to get it paid off a lot sooner. Making sure that we are not keeping up with the Joneses, making sure that we're not, racking up a bunch of debt to try to impress people that most likely don't care. Second last one is savings. Making sure that we have at least 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up for those winter months. Okay, bad times are going to come. It's when they happen. So if you have a job loss, your car needs some maintenance, your roof leaks, your furnace goes, we're not going back a step and throwing it onto our credit cards. I know people that were able to make a lot of money because they had cash set aside, because they had money set aside, that they were able to take advantage of other opportunities because these other people did not prioritize their finances during those winter months. So they came in there and bought these assets at the right price. And then when it comes to investing, and if you can explain it to me, if it doesn't make sense to you, you probably should not be putting your money there. If the financial advisor is making it sound like, again, very complex, it's making it sound very sophisticated, and it's not making sense, a lot of advisors out there do that pitch to you to make it sound like you need them, okay? If you can explain it to me, then it's most likely not the correct asset for you. And when it comes to real estate, it's a great asset, but I don't think it's the only asset out there. I care about your well-being, I care about your family, and I care about this topic tremendously. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'll get back to you when I do have some time. Okay, take care.